and how peace can be brought in the state. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And yes, I am talking about A. Bimol Okaijam, who was recently elected as the Lok Sabha MP from Inner Manipur on a Congress ticket. Thank you for joining me. And let me ask this question straight away. How do you describe Manipur's situation today, and who is solely responsible for it, sir?
You know, when we think about responsibility, there could be many ways of looking at it. One is to see in terms of what had, caused this crisis is one way of looking at it. And related to it is also the responsibility of, what should we say, of the government or the state in general. I think in that sense, the inter-community estrangement has been part of political scenario in Manipur for a long time. There is the issue of illegal immigration, since it is a border state and it's the porous border we have. This has been an issue on the demographic aspects of the state. And there is also the question of drugs. Golden Triangle is very near. We have historically, this has been the theater of armed conflict. So all these factors gets implicated in the present crisis. But what is most crucial for me is the failure of the Indian state to rein in this violence. India is no stranger to communal violence and ethnic conflicts. In fact, this country is born of massive violence, of community-based violence called the partition. I have been saying it that right from the day one, we are almost
Okay, I think there's a bit of a technical issue. We'll be joining. Mr. Okaijam has defeated the BJP candidate. His colleague from the outer Manipur defeated the BJP candidate. And Congress won both Lok Sabha seats in Manipur. People argued post-election it's an indictment. It's an indictment of the Biren Singh's rule. And it is for this reason today we will be discussing number of issues. And we will be discussing issues directly related to Manipur. So before we go back to him again, let me play out a bite of Mohan Bhagwat and then Supriya from the Congress party. Even RSS is saying that Manipur issue must be addressed immediately. Let me play out those two bites.
अब 1 साल से मणिपुर शांति की राह देख रहा है. उसके पहले 10 साल शांत रहा. पुराना गन कल्चर समाप्त हो गया ऐसा लगा, और अचानक जो कलह वहां पर उपज गया या उपजाया गया, उसकी आग में अभी तक जल रहा है, त्राही त्राही कर रहा है. कौन उस पर ध्यान देगा? प्राथमिकता देके उसका विचार करना ये कर्तव्य है.
Well, I welcome his statement from the bottom of my heart, because Manipur is a part of India. It's an integral part of India, and when we see our people suffering so much, it is extraordinarily disturbing for all of us. And this is something we have been asking. The India Alliance has been asking for the longest time, that let's have a discussion, let's form a good committee with all party, let's visit, let's give Manipur the confidence. Everything doesn't get solved with a gun. You need love also with it, and compassion and empathy.
It's a duty.
This is, I thank Mr. Bhagwat because he has been so gracious. This is something the India Alliance has been asking for last over 18 months.
So we at the News 9 who have kept an eye on Manipur since the very beginning of the violence that started more than a year ago. We have 10-point peace plan for Manipur, where we will discuss with our esteemed guests that can these be implemented? The center, state, civil society, security forces all need to come together to ensure that the peace returns. But these are the 10 points we thought we must put across. Can't these 10 points be implemented? Can't these 10 points lead to better security? So the first point, formation of an empowered peace committee. This peace committee should be allowed to meet everyone, and it should encourage cross-community talk. It should be succeeded by crackdown on civil militias. Civil militias who don't let police force, army work. It should be followed by action against CSOs who prevent public servants from discharging duties. Like Mera Paipis, they might be a small segment, but they do that. Clarity on the SU agreement. They should be there or shouldn't be there. Have they been violated or have the sanctity been kept? Search and cordon operation to recover looted weapons. Quick sealing of the international border. Prevent land grab by illegal immigrants. Crack down on the drug business. And timeline for the safe return of displaced people. Now let me straight away go to Rami Niranjan Desai, a noted author who understands Northeast. Rami, can't these 10 points, I was just speaking to the Congress candidate who won, and I'll be coming back to you. Just wait for me, Rami. He has come back. Why can't these 10 points be implemented? So, Dr. Bimal, my question to you is, does a state exist in Manipur?
No, sorry for that. I lost, my electricity off. You know what? That's what I'm saying, is that we have been almost like an Hobbesian world for some time in Manipur. I've been saying this from the day one. The state, the Indian state, should assert its authority, and the violence should have been reined in right from the day one. I mean, I was amazed. Initially, I was very hurt by the fact that prime ministers did not bother to even speak out about this. He went all the way to Assam, never bothered to visit Manipur. He visited the tragedy of the train accident in Orissa. That has been the thing. So an unprecedented violence of this kind has been allowed to go on, and the rest of the media, especially in the national media, also, have been peddling with lies and false information and facts put out of context. All these things have contributed to the tragedy that we have experienced in my home state. That is my understanding of the situation. Now I'm hoping that at least, even though it was completely avoidable thing, now I hope that the new government takes care of these issues, and we should try to resolve these issues in an amicable way, address the genuine grievances of people and so on. And that's something that I'm expecting it now. Professor
Bimal, the Congress won both the seats. What does it tell about the mood of people in Manipur in context of the political process?
This is a massive sense of being neglected and very angry. People have been, all kinds of narratives about Christian minorities, tribal minorities, and Meiteis, Hindus. These discourses that is available outside the state, and through that lens, people have been talking about it rather than looking at the specificities of the state, and try to resolve. We have that sense of being neglected, being abandoned by the Indian state, along with dissatisfactions with the ruling party because of its government, both in the union as well as in Imphal. I think that has led to this mandate. And I have said this before, this election is not a win for me as an individual or as a candidate. It is the expression of the will of the people, and it's a clear message to anywhere in the world that you can't take Manipur for granted. A historically evolved entity like Manipur. The population has contributed in our national life, be that in the armed forces or the sports or cultures. And you cannot just skip those people, allow them to kill each other, as if like the colonial times where the Europeans barely bothers about what happened in the rest of the world. I mean, I think it is unfortunate that this has been allowed so far. I think better sense should prevail now.
Where does the buck stop, sir? Biren Singh's door?
No, I think, I think I have been saying this if you have been listening to me. I think he has been used as a facade in some sense. It's a kind of a scapegoat. I know I'll give you one example, the latest incident. Just look at this. He is writing a letter. He said, he has written letter to the DZ, Chief Minister's office. It's almost like he is the Home Minister as well as the Chief Minister. So, it is one of the office that he is in charge, writing letter to another office, of which he is in charge, he's the boss. And, the issue comes in, if the failure of the law and order situations, these officers like the DZ and the security advisors should have been removed, should have been made accountable. But the point is, as people have been talking about it, it is not the CM, it seems, who has appointed these people. These are under the, you can call it instruction or diktat, if that's a too strong a word. You can say it's an instruction from the Union Home Minister. So he has been put off. If he was removed, entire blame would have come on the Prime Ministers and the Home Minister in New Delhi. And that would have been very bad for the election, it seems. That's why the people of Manipur and the life and the dignity of the people, of the Indian citizens in the state of Manipur, was placed at risk because of this short-sighted, myopic politics. Having said this, I think, again, I said, let the real, genuine, honest action begins now. Everybody should get involved. This should not be reduced to a party politics discourse. The tragedy of the people and the tragedy of that state must be taken care of. And I think we should look forward to restoring this peace and normalcy in the state.
What is the first thing which the center or the state should do to restore peace in Manipur?
Yeah, I have been saying that now that the Prime Ministers should take the first initiative. Let him call all his MLAs of the ruling party in Manipur. This is very unfortunate. You call the Kuki MLA separately, Naga MLA separately, while you keep the Meiteis to shut up their mouths. That is one of the resentment behind the mandate that I got. They were not speaking up, so they want somebody to speak up and so on. I think instead of doing that thing, I think the Honorable Prime Minister must call his MLA and tell him he's a powerful man and his word will matter. And he should say that enough is enough. You talk it out now. I don't want my people to die. Our citizens of this country cannot be allowed to be slaughtered like this. Their properties cannot be vandalized like this. And they all deserve to go back to their homes and lead a normal and dignified life. If the Prime Minister speaks out like this, I'm sure that nobody can stand up against it. I think that's the first move. And the second thing is that the Indian state must rein in this violence, and it should not be seen as siding with one person. So if you do a military operation in the Central Valley, it should be doing in the hill areas as well. Those people in the bunkers and others are not part of the Sioux agreement. And they are supposed to be in designated camps. Those people scattered everywhere with arms, roaming around in the hills or in the Central Valley. All must be shown that the ultimate authority lies with the state.
Are you saying that the militants, Kukizo militants, are operating in Manipur, have come across the border? That element is also part of this strife?
No, I said both from the outside as well. You can see it everywhere. The people with that's what the most amazing part, and the saddening part is this: that what you get to see in old days in African societies or in the Rwandan crisis and so on. India is one of the most respected democracy and largest democracy, and you are allowing a civil war-like situation to go on for more than a year. And I mean, this is a very serious matter.
You have used the word civil war?
That's what I said, a civil war-like situation. You see people armed to the teeth, and the people are fighting. And where are these forces? Indian armed forces. I mean, you can't give in one excuse or the other, should crack down. You should have done it. The authority and of the Indian state must have come to the fore.
But doctor, what is the social origin of Cookie saying that we want Assam rifles and Maiti saying that we only trust the state police forces? Where does this division originates from?
No, that's the danger. I have been saying this. If you see my interviews before I joined this electoral politics, I must tell you that I'm a reluctant politician. I've never thought that I would be fighting elections. I would have loved to continue with what I am doing all my life, though I am concerned about the affairs in this country, and particularly in my part of the world. I was forced to come into this. That's besides that. What I'm saying is, whatever, I have already laid out certain factors, historical factors that have been implicated, but we must fix the responsibility and accountability on the Indian state. And when I use the Indian state, many people try to immediately say BJP, then Manipur government, Meitei government, and this government in India. I am talking about Indian state as a legitimate state, as a state as defined in Article 12 of the Indian Constitution. You must assert its authority, and the life and property of the citizen must be protected. And I think that Indian state's representative, like armed forces and police, have been communalized, and they have lost of the section of the population is a serious matter. And those officers in charge of this institution should have addressed that. Unfortunately, even some of the armed forces are being seen through their act as siding with one group or the other. You see, they should have been made careful, and the political authority and civilian authority should have been given in the right place, rather than they jumping into releasing videos and so on.
As an elected representative in last 1 year, how come their role has diminished? I have tried my best to keep up with Manipur crisis from the day it erupted, and I realized that over a period of time, Dr. Bimal, the civil society actors have taken over. Either you have those Cookie militias, or those Cookie civil society actors, or you have Arambai Tengol, or somewhere you have Mehra Paibis. They have overtaken the function of lawmakers. They have stepped into that domain. Why has that happened? And how are the independent legislators, lawmakers, or people like you are elected by the people, take that space from them?
That's what I said. That is squarely on our political class. It is very sad to see that the ultimate authority is the will of the people, and these representatives represents them. That's what we call it, representation itself. And their legitimacy and their dignity and their honor has been jeopardized. Their authority was reduced to dust in Manipur. And I think this is a sad commentary on our political class. I think it is their own doing. Their lack of, what should I say, action, and their utter disregard for their responsibility and duties have led to these situations. But again, I'm saying that now what we need to do is that authority of the state and authority of these people's representative must be asserted. But unfortunately, a myopic vision of some of the political class or political politicians are themselves, they're subverting their own status and position in society.
When Biren Singh says, he gave an interview, you must have also read it, that, he's fighting a war against drugs, narcotics, illegals, and the message which you draw from it is that he's being targeted because, he's taken a position on all those issues.
No, whatever I said, remember that there are inter-community estrangement in Manipur. It is not new. I have said this, there are issues of illegal immigrations, and there are issues of, drugs, and, which not only implicates people in India, but also abroad. There are issues, this has been the theater of armed conflict. These are the backgrounds. But I think what aggravated or what, made me sad is that all these issues the state is supposed to handle. That's why we have government. The government didn't do this. Then people have been slaughtered, that thousands of people have been forced to leave their homes. I have visited, it's a terrible condition in the relief camp. What I have read, and in my research experience, unfortunately, I have this experience of having worked under Professor Ashish Nandi on a partition project. The kind of humiliation people have gone through in the camps, post-partitions, was part of the violence. Violence is not an event, it's a process. And I have seen that violence still continuing in relief camps. The kind of humiliations, ek dal, ek chawal, ek dal, ek chawal, roz khate hai. Everybody is living like, you go to that, even in the toilet areas, people are sleeping there, it's not a place. It's so congested, and people are standing like a beggar and selling off things, and people, this is a situation, how long the sympathy buying will continue? All these things, the state is going to wash off his hands, irrespective of whichever political party you belong to. It is our responsibility to take care of these people. So you can't play games around this, and the failure of the state is there. No, I don't need to speak about it. Do you think the state was present in Manipur all this while? You have people can't cross one area. What is Article 19 says? Freedom of movement. And I know life is not surviving. It's about dignity. Supreme Court judgment, look at this. Do you think these people have the dignity now? And finance, the economy is so much jeopardized now in the state. You can't simply, I did this because of this is happening. The fact remains that the state has failed to rein in the violence and restore normalcy. There should be no two opinion on this. And that is the responsibility. One must be honest enough to accept that we have failed to do it. Now I want to do it. That's what I want to hear. Rather than throwing up excuses. That much honesty, and people will accept. We should work together, irrespective of the party, and there no should be politicking on these issues. People have suffered, and I think it's time for people to accept that responsibility of the government was not exercised, and people have suffered because of that. And one should have the gut and the honesty to accept that there has been shortcomings and failure on our part, and we want to move ahead and resolve this now. I think that should be the orientation now.
You said that you work with Professor Nandi on the issue of partition violence. Do you think that there should be a Truth and a Reconciliation Commission, accountability, audit of memories?
No, this has to come in. This has to come in. It is inevitable. But right now, some of the critical issues that the state face has to be dealt with. There can be no peace without justice. Remember this. And you know, when we talk about justice, we only think about tribals, minority, and so on. Meiteis have historically rooted grievances and sense of humiliations. And all these things must be, dealt with. That's a part of the process. But
can you elaborate on it? Because a lot of people would know that in rest of the India. The Meiteis sense of injustice.
Just wait, Kartike, let me complete what I was saying. And let's not conflate issues here. Let's go systematically. I'm saying that the wreath of the state must work. The authority of the state must be asserted. You remember that, you should claim the monopoly of the legitimate use of physical force in order to maintain law and order so that normal citizens can lead a normal life. And that must be exercised first before we talk about anything else. And then we have this series of issues that we have mentioned about the drug-related issues, question of illegal immigrations, demographic natures, and grievances of the people that they don't get access to the goods and services of the state. There's a sense of discrimination. Along with that, what I am saying is that as you deal with this, the third step is to open up, not a negotiation, a dialogue. We must distinguish between dialogue and negotiation. A dialogue must begin, not negotiations. Then, that systematically we have to address a lot of injustice. You know that there can be just, peace cannot be a hollow talk. Peace has to be grounded on justice. And in that case, I'm just reminding you, we are used to thinking about minority as about, is associated with the notion of injustice. They are all the time victims. That kind of a narrative is not true. By the way, there are a lot of false disinformations about this incident, unfortunately, including by media. We have done a study on that. This is available online, the entire book. So you can see how the national media have paddled on disinformation
That book
campaign.
was sent to me. Yeah, I know. I've got it. Yeah, that was sent to me. I've gone through it, a part of it. Yes, I've gone through that. Yes, it was sent to me. I asked you, that historical sense of justice in context of Maithis. Can you elucidate on one point? Because yes, I do understand when people talk about injustice, it is generally in the context of the minority. That's the popular perception.
This will take a long time. There's the colonial discourse we are supposed to unpack. Colonial period happen is that many of the colonial discourses and practice continued even in the post-colonial period, and Meiteis have suffered because of that one. And I think it sums up a last part of the sense of. I think if you go back, even an ex-Home Secretary of the Union government, Mrs. E.K. Pillai, once said this clearly about this sense of humiliations that the people of Manipur have gone through, and one of that humiliation is particularly and more intimately experienced by the Meiteis, and that I think one must acknowledge at this moment, and details we can go on later on.
Dr. Bimal, you spoke about the camps, the ghettoization which has taken place. Do you think that it's almost permanent in Manipur? People use a word called the line of control, that on this side a particular community lives and on the other side a different community lives. Is it correct?
Kartikeya, the only time, see, this is something that when the violence happens, the job of the state is to protect these communities. You show the strength of the state and protect their life and property. But what happened in Manipur is that you shifted out the population, just as was done in the 1947 partition in South Asia. You shift out the population, and worse, right under the nose of the administration, you flatten those residential colonies once the population has been shifted out. I have cited one example in Churachandpur. Meitei colonies have been, first you shifted out the populations and you flatten those things. And then what happened is recently this thing came up again, and some people were trying to make market out of those flattened areas. This is nothing but ethnic cleansing. And these are done right under the nose of the state. You should not, it has never happened in the country. The only
Something
time
which happened in Jiribam? Something which happened in Jiribam?
It seems that it is repeating it, unfortunately, in Jiribam again.
Yes.
You withdraw, shifted out the population. Once they have been shifted out, now those villages, those houses have been looted and burned down. Instead of protecting those things, I heard that at least in Jiribam town, some of the residences of certain specific communities have been now protected by armed forces, surrounded, and they have not been shifted out, which is the right thing to do. But unfortunately, concerning with the Meiteis, as some of the villages, I was told that I've seen some video clips have been shifted out, and once they have been shifted out, those villages have been burned down. I think these things must not be done. The only time I remember in the post-colonial period where population was forced to be shifted out is in Kashmir. We talked about the Pandits. I think that's the only case where I remember in the post-colonial period. Even then, there are still Pandits around there. But I don't know why the Indian state is doing this. And our media, our intellectuals and politicians are talking without any compunction. There's a buffer zones, there's a line of control. Is it an international event where India is intervening as a peacekeeping force? No, this is part of India. How can you use these words like line of control and buffer zones? This should affront our sensibility as citizens. This is part of India. This is Indian state. Why do you Indian medias and intellectuals and politicians keep on harping on these terms, which is creating a particular reality? Use that one. You should know that, I've been saying this right from the day one. The state has failed. People were slaughtered in Imphal in the first few days. You remember that. You know that the violence started in Churachandpur area, but knowing that there could be reaction, the state should have responded. Instead of that, both everywhere, the manner in which the Indian state has behaved will go down in history of this country as a blot. It will be a blot on the Indian state.
The state was slow to respond. There is no doubt about it. I mean, so the
Not
state.
slow. Kartikeya, this is 13 months. What we are talking about? 13 months. It's been still going on. And then so much hatred and discourses through the medias and, demonizing communities have been allowed to happen. What are we doing? Had this been in UP or Bihar, do you think that Indian state would have allowed this thing to happen like this?
No. The heavy hand
And
would
we
have
should-
been.
If you say no, then you must ask why.
No, heavy
Why
hand.
what did not have happened in UP and Bihar was allowed to happen in India's northeast.
Is it because
Let's
it's
ask
not?
about this as
It's
well.
not. Is it because it's Northeast is not still the part of the mainstream imagination?
I don't want to go into that, but I think it's good that, I would consider you as a very honest journalist. You have said, no, it would not happen. I have said this. It would not have happened. And we must ask, in 75th year of India's independence, we as citizens of this country must ask this question. Why it was allowed in that part of the world, which we all know they would not have allowed to be happen in UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, in the so-called mainstream. I think we need to keep this thing in our mind.
And before I let go of, I have also noticed that this narrative of changing names in Manipur, in the books, use of different name, a sort of a contestation of history in terms of land. Why is that so prominent in this conflict? Like, for example, Lamka, and the gates being erected, sort of a parallel history, which contradicts, which eats into the history of Manipur, the other history.
Well, I see it as, political bankruptcy being supplemented by an intellectual bankruptcy. That's all, things that people write as academic books and something. That's a clear sign of intellectual bankruptcy, perhaps motivated by politics. In that book that we have written about the media, you can see how blatant lies have been peddled by academics on non-existing things. You would see that in that book. That's what I call it. Both there is a political bankruptcy and it is complemented by intellectual bankruptcy, and sometimes it's a blatant motivated lies being peddling all around. I think these issues will come up, but I think we have more important things at hand. I think I'm insisting again, as I said, the state should not be an Hobbesian world. The state must come in and perform its designated roles.
Dr. Bimul, you're an academician. There is one word which every teacher would ask his students. Just frame your question. How do you frame this conflict, sir?
Well, this is part of multicultural society, and India is a unique. Manipur is no exception to that rule. The thing is that democracy is the best way to deal with differences. And this is the failure of the Indian democracy. And Manipur is a classic example, which is telling across the world that democracy has failed.
Can I ask you one last question before I let go of you? I know my time is up, what I have asked from your office. Do you think that both Prime Minister and Biren Singh failed to act appropriately at an appropriate time and underestimated the Manipur conflict?
Can I ask the same questions to you?
No, I'm a journalist. It's my
You
opportunity.
have been observing this. You have been one of those ethical journalists who have been pursuing this, refusing to
my
let go
personal
of
opinion,
brother.
my personal opinion, state has failed. My personal opinion, I think more should have been done from the centre's part. More should have come from Biren Singh's office. If you ask
I
my
think
opinion,
that sums up. I share your views.
I mean,
I
so
have the
this
same
misery
view as
of more
yours.
than 1.5 years, responsibility has to lie somewhere.
No, that's what, if they thinks people who are supposed to act did not act. I think government, who runs a government, should take the responsibility for whatever happened in my home state.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
you
you,
so
sir.
much, Dr. Bimble, for joining me. Let me straight away go to Rami Niranjan Desai. Rami, thank you so much for being patient with me. I know you came in a bit early and you were there with me. Thank you, Rami. Really, I mean, so the guests can get really impatient, and sometimes, I can land up with WhatsApp, what is this, you're making me wait. It was a fabulous conversation with him, and I actually met him at your office. and that is I know the gentleman. So thank you for that, Rami, for introducing me to a lot of people from Manipur from both sides of the community. Where that Rami needs to, that's Rami's call, whether she will tell me where I was invited and I met these gentlemen there, and also men and women both, not only men. So Rami, he spoke about in context of the Meitei, he also spoke about injustice only in the context of the minority is a very wrong thing. So when I framed this debate, I said 10 things we need to do, and the first 10 things the gentleman has spoken about audit of memories and justice being pivotal to democratic process. And I don't want Rami the journalist, I want Rami the author, an academician there.
Karthikeya, good evening. And of course, you can't get Rami the journalist because Rami is not a journalist. But what you will get is, an opinion that is not limited by political views or political limitations. Because I have always said this, that I have no meat in the game. I'm not from Manipur. I do not represent a political party. I never will. Now, I have been waiting patiently because I've also been taking some notes on what Dr. Koijam has been saying. He's a very, he's a very educated man. He's a very lucid man, eloquent man. But unfortunately, as much as I agree with him on a certain level, I disagree with him on many levels. And let me take this point by point, and please accord me a little bit of time so that I can do so. Mr. Koijam said that, the Indian state is responsible. Let me ask this question of you, Karthikeya. Did the drug nexus suddenly come up in the last 5 years? Did illegal immigration suddenly come up in the last 5 years? Did 996 villages that were identified as being illegal, which were in forest areas, and there was accusations of land grabbing, did this happen in the last 5 years? Why was there no fencing done, not even an inch of fencing done in these many decades since independence? Why is it that 10 years ago, the highest rate of HIV via intravenous drug use was in Manipur? These are questions that are very difficult to answer when you're representing a political party. We'd like to believe that all of these problems have been immediate and they've come up because the Indian state suddenly doesn't care, so on and so forth. That is not the truth. It is an easier it's an easier accusation to make than to take responsibility for the deficits that have happened in the time that the party that you support was in power. So now, having said that, let me also say, when Rahul Gandhi came from his Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra, so much as we say about, the communities should come together. Of course, I agree the communities should come together, And it's not as if the Indian state or the government is keeping them apart. The fact of the matter is that the time is not right, because when Rahul Gandhi came for his Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra, the Meitei congressmen could not go to the hill areas. He actually asked them to stay back. When Supriya Sule talks about Manipur, I would like to know how many times that she has bothered to visit Manipur or any of the northeastern states. So it's very easy to point a finger. When the Naga-Kuki conflict happened, it took almost 9 years for it to subside. When this government took over from the Congress, for a year, the Kuki community had not buried some of its own people because of what was perceived as an anti-tribal law. And that was brought to a resolution by the present government. So, it is very important, as you have said. I come from a more of a policy background. So for me, I can hold accountable whoever I want. I'm not limited by politics. Now, when we also talk about the Indian state being held responsible, the fact is the Indian state sees the people of Manipur as its own people. So to use brute force would not just be foolhardy, would not just be strategically ill-advised, but also would have dire consequences. So I think we should stay away from terminologies like a civil war-like situation, or or saying that the Indian state is responsible, because this is a difficult situation, and previous governments have been in the same situations, except the difference was that the Northeast was never central to the government's policy at that time, so nobody ever heard about the Naga-Kuki conflict. Today, because the Northeast region is central to this government's policy, everybody has heard about it. And news channels like yours have run it for months on end. So I think everything has to be looked upon within a context. It has to be framed in a certain way wherein real questions are asked so that real answers can be had. Now, you look at what has happened in Jiribam. Everybody agrees that there should not have been any amount of displacement of people.
Okay.
Because whatever said and done, when the same had happened in Imphal, there was security that was given communities who were living, Kuki communities who were, or households who were in Imphal. However, this situation has happened. There are many vested interests. There are many militant groups that are involved in this. Now we have to call a spade a spade. And I doubt if you are representing a political party who can lay the blame fairly and squarely. Last few points. Let me say this, that Mr. Bimal Okoijom had the audacity to say that democracy has failed. If democracy has failed, how is he an elected representative today? So I think it is very important that if we are holding political positions, that we take responsibility for what we say. Democracy has not failed. People's mandate has won, and we must respect that. And people who have been elected must speak up for people irrespective of their communities and their political future.
Okay, fair enough. I'm also joined by Hejang Misao, social activist, Major General Ashwani Srivach. I know the interviews are stretched a little longer, but the gentleman, one from Manipur, then I'll go to Hejang. The top and bottom of the conversation was that there has to be a process, audit of memories and justice, which is very pivotal. So why is it difficult to have peace committees in Manipur, which are empowered, which are there in many other parts of the world, which actually create ground for consensus or politics rooted on the idea of consensus?
Kartikeya, are you asking me?
This question, yes. This question is for you,
Okay.
Hejang. Then I'll go to General Srivach.
That's a very, thanks for the show once again. And that's a good question. Like now the entire complexity on the conflicts of Manipur, especially when it comes to peace process, is something which I keep telling people. If it is purely a conflict, if it is purely between communities, Kukis and Meiteis, I think the whole peace process will be much easier than what it is today. Now, why I'm saying that is because now the way how the Kuki community view the entire conflict is, it is a state-sponsored conflict, where there are also enough evidence and proof saying that the entire system is used against the particular community, Kuki community, for which actually in such kind of whole context where conflicts taking place between communities, state governments, or the states can come in and initiate the peace process. Now, who is going to do that? Because the Kuki community totally lost their trust on the state government, for which the whole peace process is also like a far cry till now. For which now even yesterday itself, there is also ambush taking place on the highway to Jiribam, and then the media has been pitching the Kuki community in such a way that they are also attacking the constitutional head of the state. And I would also like to make clear on that is because how the Kuki community view the state forces has also needs to be understood. When the Jiribam is burning, why is only a state forces comprised of only the Meitei population is sent to that area? Why is on the state forces, which is of a population from the Kuki community, is not dispatched there? So sensing more danger coming of the state forces by the Kuki community, they are also trying to stop that forces to reinforce and help one particular community and like fight against another community. That is the reason why I'm saying the entire complexity of what is happening in Manipur is, since it is not purely between Meiteis and Cookies, since the Cookie community is viewing the state forces, the violence as state sponsor, the whole peace process is something which is difficult to initiate.
Okay, now let me go across to Ashwini Sivach. Thank you, sir, so patiently waiting for me. My question to you is, why is it not possible to have empowered peace committees supported by the might of the Indian Army, which actually gets leaders from various communities together, audit the memories, audit the work, and have a conversation supported by the might of the Indian Army?
I agree with you. See, the point today is that whatever you may say, there is a distrust and mistrust between both these communities, Cookies and Meiteis. Meiteis feel that the Cookies are the one which are to be blamed, and Cookies feel that it's the Meiteis which are majority community, and the state has been not very objective, they have been partial. So there is a sort of a distrust, and this distrust can only be reduced if we start have a empowered peace committee, which can be under the state, and also, you know, the army cannot be the custodian of it until unless the state government wants. But the point today is that where is the flaw? That first is the problem of Manipur does not lie in Manipur itself. The roots are also in Myanmar. The two main reasons as to why this violence is still not under control is that illegal migration which has taken place over a period of time from Myanmar, and also the drugs which have coming, and drug cultivation which are taking place in here. So this is also one of the main reasons. And the point which is come is that it has been complicated to an extent that the state forces or the central forces, they have been seen by these communities that they are favoring one and they are taking action against other, which possibly may not be correct. So the point today is, where do we go and how do we go about it? So the point, first and foremost, I agree with this peace committee formula which is given. It has to be comprehensive and also been a plan which has to go simultaneously. One is that as on today as a state, we are reactive. We are not proactive. We are taking action after an event has taken place. First is that you have to be proactive. You don't let a situation go out of hand. Now, the point which time and again coming is the until unless you do not bring peace and stability in Manipur, people will not have faith and confidence in government machinery. And how do you bring it? It is only can be brought in case you do a coordinated search operation and take out these weapons, which is a poison, which is spread in the whole society. Until these weapons do not come out of this society, you will find a peace will be very fragile. On a small issue, someone will use these weapons, and then again you go back to square one. So first and foremost is, in addition to the peace committee, which we are now advocating, empowered peace committee, you must operate objectively and without fear and without bias, and also ensure that you able to hit those people who are having these weapons. These weapons must be got back from the society, because this makes the society vulnerable and charged. The second issue which is coming is very important. Is seal this border between India and Myanmar. This border is not is a part of a problem, not part of solution. And also this basically when you able to go 16 kilometers on the either side, free movement regime, that has to also stop. And the next point is, what worst thing which has happened in this case is that there were two communities. One was staying in hills, one was staying in plain, and in between there were certain places which were on the foothills. Both the communities were staying, and they were staying peacefully. But after this incident, you find it that is no more there, and those communities, either one community is left there, or either it is Meiteis or Kuki, the other community has to leave it. So the distress has increased, and that's why this buffer zone was created. It was an operational necessity. It is not that why buffer zone has been created within the country itself, because when the two communities were fighting with each other and ready to take the life of each other, the security forces had no choice but to have a buffer zone. But having said so, now the peace committee has to be there. The distrust has to be reduced between the two community by the top social, you can say, leader from both sides. Start has to be made. And the third thing which is there is justice should be seen to be done. Anyone who's taking law in his hand, irrespective which party belongs, which community belongs, a strong action needs to be taken. And show that action is impartial and objective. That is what it is. Because whenever we hear anyone coming on a TV channel, that he sometimes get influenced by an idea from which community he belongs, because he trying to justify what action they have done. What we are not saying is that who is wrong and who's right. We are only saying something is gone wrong and peace has to come back, democracy has to come back, and for that you need to do 4 things. One is that operation, second is peace committee, third is sealing of the border, and fourth is also that you ensure all other actors and characters also brought on the same platform.
Okay. Rami, one quick reaction from you and then to Hijang, then I'll close the show. Rami, what I really want to know is that the Prime Minister has mentioned Manipur in his 100-day plan. What sort of expectations do you have in a 100-day plan on an issue which has festered for more than a year?
Look, Kartikeya, I think we have to start from the foundation that nobody is to be vilified. You know, there has been a lot of vilification of one community over the other and vice versa. And I think that has to stop, not just on media channels, but also on social media, you know, just for some amount of rationality to seep in. But having said that, I think the panelists before me made a very important point, and which is the point that I want to come to, which is swift action and justice. You know, I don't think it's going to be very easy to have combing operations, because you see, it's not just about weapons coming in from somewhere, but it's also about now people learning how to make certain you know, munitions, you know, so RPGs, you know, some of them have learned how to make, and so on and so forth, you know. Also, you know, there's a larger grand agenda. I've written about this, and that makes things a lot more complex. However, if it is seen as there is swift action and swift justice being meted out to perpetrators, anybody who's not following the rule of law, I think that will be a good starting point to mend bridges. Number 2, when we talk about peace committees, let me remind you that there have been peace committees that have been made, and those have not come to any conclusion. The reason being that when a person from one community goes to mend bridges or says something positive about the other community, he is seen as a traitor. Now, this kind of responsibility to not to vilify somebody who is trying to make amends, very important.
Fair
you know?
enough. Fair enough.
Sorry,
That's a fair enough, solid point, you know. Yes, I understand that. And I know that it's very difficult to get people from both the communities in the same room. I've seen that. Hijang, 1 minute to you. What can be the best starting point?
For me, the best starting point should be also understand the aspiration of the other community without putting in the aspiration of the other community as a point for peace process. I think it's only a one-way process. Peace cannot be a one-way process. It has to be a two-way process. Now, you cannot dictate peace. I would also resonate the word of Albert Einstein when he said peace cannot be kept by force. You cannot dictate, you cannot keep peace by force. Now, whatever points which are coming up is this like with due consensus or due acceptance from the other community? Because when you talk about peace, it has to be a two-way process where both the community has to also agree to the point of discussion. Unless that point of discussion is accepted by both the community, whatever it is, either it is dialogue or what it is
That's
negotiation.
also true. That's also true.
Then